Good evening. Good evening, my sisters and my brothers all. I'm Johnnetta Betsch Cole. I have the extraordinary pleasure and really the honor of serving as the director of the National Museum of African Art at the Smithsonian. A very warm and a very hearty welcome. Welcome home to the National Museum of African Art. Whenever you come to this museum, it's a homecoming, because here, through the visual arts of Africa, you are able to connect to that part of the world where humanity began. Through our exhibitions, our educational programs, our public events, we invite everyone to experience and, frankly, to fall in love with the beauty and the diversity of the art and cultures of Africa. We also invite all of our visitors to celebrate the dynamic connections that bind the peoples and cultures of Africa to each other, to the diaspora, and to the world. Tonight's panel is sponsored by the Sanaa Circle, a wonderful friends group that supports our museum by helping us to reach out near and far to increase membership in the National Museum of African Art. Now, there's an interesting connection between the topic of tonight's discussion and how the Sanaa Circle began. A few years ago, I was in a beauty salon up under a hair dryer. Sounds familiar? Seated next to me, also under a hair dryer, was attorney Lisa Bell. She lifted up her bonnet, invited me to lift mine up, and she said, "Dr. Cole, I'm Lisa Bell. I want to know how I can help support the National Museum of African Art." You know I had something for her to do. And so Lisa Bell began to invite a number of other professional folk to come into a circle to support a museum that really does belong to all of us. They named themselves, these wonderful women and men. They took a name from the lingua franca we know as Swahili. Sanaa means art. Well, the rest is history, or as I prefer to say, her story. Because today, the Sanaa Circle is working very, very closely with our membership coordinator, Colleen Morris, to do one of the most important works that we need to have done, namely to build our membership. Now, so that we may thank the Sanaa Circle folk for all that they have done, including raising the funds so that tonight's event could be free, I want to ask them to stand and to be acknowledged. First and ever so importantly, the brother president of the Sanaa Circle, Tom Dawson. Well, leadership sets the tone. So as the other officers and members stand, I trust you have your waves in order. I think you are here. The good Dr. Monty Harris, other Sanaa members who are with us tonight, Some are outside still helping us to get the event going. I also want to ask for a very special round of applause for Colleen Morith, who is the membership coordinator for our museum and who is on a roll. Colleen, where are you? Out there trying to get members, out there trying to sign people up. Now, I know that on your programs, all of tonight's sponsors are listed. I don't care. I'm going to call their names anyway as a way of saying how much we appreciate their support. Kamal Ali and Ben's Chili Bowl, the Anacostia Art Gallery, Larry Atkins, BET Networks, Beverly Burke, J.R. Clark Esquire, Donette Cooper, Audra Cunningham, the Good Brother President Thomas Dawson, Do Good HAIR Hair Project with its principal, Dr. Monty Harris, Larry Frazier, Monty Harris again, Barbara Johnson, Leftwich and Ludaway, Lucia Riddle, a member of our board, Squire Sanders, Ben Soto, and Premium Title LLC. Please thank our sponsors. Now, my dear sisters and brothers all, please hear me. It is critically important that we build membership in our museum. This is the work of the Sanaa Circle. This is my work. This is your work as well. And it's especially important that we all do this work now as our museum, like other museums at the Smithsonian, like other federal agencies, like other agencies, and certainly like regular folks, feel the consequences of sequestration. I mean, it's bad enough to make us go through it, but then they give us a word we can hardly pronounce. Now, as you may know from reading the press, one of the ways that this is hitting us here at the National Museum of African Art is that we have actually had to close a small gallery here in our museum. We had to do so in response to a reduction in the number of guards assigned to our museum. It is true that we at this museum, like all Smithsonian museums, receive somewhere between 60% and 70% of our budget from the federal appropriations. But when that federal appropriation drops, then it means that we have to increase our sources of funds from private means. Well, we didn't want to make it a difficult task for you to sign up tonight. And so before you sat down, you should have found a membership form on your chair. Can you imagine what it would be like if every single sister and brother here who is not currently a member of this museum signed up tonight? You know, raising funds is simply a necessary task. And the more folk who engage in it, the easier it is to declare victory. I'm speaking now in the spirit of that wonderful Ethiopian proverb that says, when spider webs unite, they can even tie up an elephant. Now, it's really time for me to introduce our moderator for the evening, who will in turn introduce the panel. It's always kind of strange to introduce in a formal way someone that you're so close to, that you admire so deeply, but I'm going to do my best. Tonight's panel will be, moderated by Dr. Johnnetta Betsch Cole. She is an anthropologist who serves as a folklife curator and cultural heritage specialist at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. Now, there's something of very special importance to what we have as our topic of discussion. And that is that Johnnetta Betsch Cole is the principal investigator and curator of the Will to Adorn initiative at the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. This initiative looks at identity and how it is reflected in African American dress. This summer, when the Folklife Festival takes place on the National Mall, you all will be there, right? You've been there before. You're coming again. All right. This summer, when the Folklife Festival happens, I need you to know that the Will to Adorn Project will be one of the 3 themes of this year's Folklife Festival on the National Mall. Now, I must add one more thing before I turn the mic over to Sister Johnnetta. She is also a dress designer and a, you like it? Jewelry maker. Dr. Betsch Cole.
Can you hear me? First of all, I wanted to say what an incredible honor it is to be here and doing this program with this really distinguished panel, and to be here with Dr. Johnnetta Betsch Cole, who's been a mentor and a role model and an incredible person of knowledge for so many people, and also is an exemplar of style. In the program that we're doing, we talk about people who are artisans of style and exemplars of style. These are the folks who are the style setters, the style makers. And as we look at the project, it's also one that talks about identity. And I have to say that in thinking about this project, we thought that not only Dr. Cole and the staff and docents and the folks who are associated with the National Museum of African Art really fit in that category, wouldn't you say? So I would like, and also you who are in the audience who come to the events and who become members of the program are in that category. So it's really, really a delight and really a homecoming also to be here. We were, in putting together the program, the Will to Adorn, We also have some folks that I'd like to acknowledge before we get started, which is our Will to Adorn team at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. And if you could just stand, this is our team of Will to Adorn folks. So when you come to the National Mall, Keisha, you too, you will see them there. But we're here tonight to talk about here. We are with our distinguished panelists, Dr. Karen Milbourne, Ms. Gina Page, Dr. Monty O'Harris, who's also part of the Will to Adorn team as part of our advisory committee, and Ms. Camille E. Reed, who will be here. Yeah, we're all united by thinking about this topic of here. It's a very, very old topic. It's something that, I remember that at the Brooklyn Museum years ago, there was a research project looking at the mummies in the tombs at the Brooklyn Museum. And they looked in one of the tombs and they couldn't figure out what was going on with the hair, the wigs, what was happening with the hair of those folks. And you and I, and I would say that for folks in 2013 would look and say, oh, well, they have locks. They had locks. And this is something that we know then that this topic of hair and the styling of hair has been going on for many, many centuries. So what we want to do is that we want to start off by talking a little bit about the context. And I know it's a conversation that each of us have had at some point in our lives, and in African American communities, and as well as on the African continent, in the diaspora, there has been so many associations from identity to economics. Hair has had a very important role in the fact that folks have came over through the Middle Passage, or were exposed to the encounter with European aesthetics and European aesthetics of the body. There were times at which hair was looked at, Africoid hair that was curly, hair that was tightly coiled, was associated with inferiority, was not associated with beauty. And so that heritage or that history has been a very long history for the past 600 years that's been fraught with a lot of issues. And we've seen that in the 21st century, there has been now a real growth and a real expansion of what we think of as beautiful hair. And so this is part of our discussion. Oops, here we go. And I spoke of the Will to Adorn. We're talking about all of these varieties of African hair, which I see in the audience as well. I'm just going to say a little thing about the Will to Adorn project. And for the past 3 years, we've been looking across the country at not only hair, but also at what people see as the relationship between how you style your hair, how you dress, what your aesthetics of dress are, and the community that you feel a belonging to. And we've been talking, this project has involved young people. It's involved practitioners, cultural practitioners like Ms. Janua Moja, who's in the audience here, who actually is a wonderful designer. We've also been talking to people in various communities of faith, communities across the country, and looking at the development of style. We start with cultural autobiographies. We start with looking at how the journey that we've each taken to look at our hair. Many folks within many communities, but particularly in the African American and African communities, have gone through periods where you've had your hair braided, or you've had your hair done. You've had your hair done in the salon, or you've had your hair done by your family. And as you've grown, and as you've changed, and as you've become conscious of different things, you may have changed the way that you wear your hair. And so we start with the first thought. So what we're doing in this discussion is to ask you to think about your own hair stories, because these are very, very important. And of course, the hair, the concept of hair and hair styling has very long and varied roots across the African continent. And the process of sitting down and having your hair done by other people is a social relationship. So whether it's at the kitchen, at the stove, with the grease on the hand and the hot comb, or having your hair rolled into locks, or having your hair straightened, or having your hair braided, these concepts of the relationship between hair and sociability, hair and family, reach to deep roots within our communities. And so the hot comb. Hair has also been a very important political, has had great political import. There were times when, in the 1970s, the going from straightened hair to the Afro comb was a statement of identity, of assertion, and was even looked at as threatening, not only in terms of the movement and the Afro and it being a symbol of Black liberation within the 1970s, but there were even court cases fought. For instance, I remember at hotels and in the corporate world, for people to be able to wear their hair in braids or in locks. There were all sorts of people felt very threatened by folks wanting to wear their hair naturally in ways that were not familiar. Within economics, the first African American millionaires were people who created hair products. Everyone knows about Madam C.J. Walker. Many people know about Madam C.J. Walker, who's talked about as the first African American millionaire. Her teacher, Miss Annie Turbo Malone, who lived from 1869 to 1954, also established beauty schools and beauty products and set a precedent for the kinds of economic institutions that the hair industry became, and that Ms. Camille is one of the descendants of Annie Malone. And even if you go around the world, you see that these symbols become very important. This was taken in Buenos Aires, Argentina, at a cultural center. And this image of Angela Davis was used to symbolize the power and the community empowerment that had to do with, that the center wanted to espouse. And the symbol, Angela with her beautiful halo. So artisans of style who use their creativity to support the needs of the community are part of the hair story. We have folks, whether it be here or on the African continent, where we're talking about processed hair, and we're talking about hair sculpture. Hair is an art form as well. So here it's had all of these meanings within our community, and this is what we're going to be talking to. I think that looking at these artistically rendered works that are part of African creativity is a good way to segue into the next speaker, Dr. Karen Milbourne, who, as I mentioned in the beginning, is an incredible authority on African art, who, if you look on the first floor, created that wonderful exhibition, that groundbreaking exhibition, literally groundbreaking, called Earth Matters. She has spent decades studying historical art as well as art that's being created today in the African world, and is going to talk to us about here in that context. Dr. Milbourne, thanks.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you, Diana, for the lovely introduction. And it's such great fun, actually, to be able to be in a program with Diana, somebody who I like so very much. One of the greatest challenges in taking on a topic as rich as the subject we're engaging with tonight is all the different issues that get tangled in together, and trying to figure out how to disentangle and navigate our way through a complex host of, oops, there was a whole lot more that Diana didn't say. Okay, here we go. Through a host of issues, such as how we see ourselves and those who came before us in time, how we learn to differentiate between sameness and difference. There are so many issues that come to bear when how we look at things from the African continent, from how we situate an object by using the word like traditional when it may be part of an ongoing tradition of honoring the head and adorning oneself, but that is always applied in a way that is timely and politic and societally significant. And remembering that when we look at each and every aspect of a work of art or a work of human creativity on the human body. And what I've shown to begin is actually two works of art from the 19th century. And I don't know if these are representative of hairstyles that existed before the 19th century, but they are definitely a part of the Luba Empire at its apex, when this empire was spreading and people were choosing to adhere to it and to show their allegiance to this identity. And part of how they did that was through their hair. And what you see with these hairstyles is the peak of cultivation, that the hair has become a place of such profound creativity, that the hair could be a sculptural element in and of itself. So what we have on the right is actually a hairstyle that was called the cascade hairstyle because it looks like waves coming down. And this is a hairstyle that those of you who saw the Washington Post today actually saw a little blurb on it. It took 50 hours for a woman to sculpt her hair into this framework. And that meant that she was a woman with the means, the wherewithal to take 50 hours from her children, from her home, from her other obligations to attend to her hair. And that she was the kind of person that somebody would dedicate 50 hours to working with her to accomplish such an extraordinary work of art. And that says a whole lot. So whenever you look at any work of art, be it from Africa or anywhere in the world, pay attention to the hair because it says so much. Here we are seeing the ultimate embodiment of sophistication, of someone who is to be regarded and who regards herself. And you also see how that can translate into other works of art, such as the piece next to it that is here in our collection at the National Museum of African Art and is just one of my favorite pieces of all time. But what you see again is a hairstyle made of two braids that intersect. And they intersect to show profound concepts. So here we have the world of the living coming together with the world of the divine. And that often that point of connection can happen in your dreams. And so if you have your hair become a symbol of connection, it will feed you and allow you to be in communication throughout the generations. And both of these works of art, as you can see, are identified as headrests. And that's basically a sculptural word for a pillow. And that is because if somebody has just taken 50 hours to do their hair, they do not want to roll over and crush it. So this is a beautiful, nice little pillow that you could just tuck right here or on the back of your neck and leave your hair not touching anything. And it crosses genres. So whether you're looking at a three-dimensional sculptural work, a performance work such as a masquerade, you will see attention to the hair. And again, this is a masquerade from a different culture, from Chokwe peoples, from Angola, although they also live neighboring regions to Luba in Central Africa. And again, you see this attention to the hair. And this mask was made to honor womanhood itself. So it's called Po, and it is the embodiment of all that is beautiful. And you can see that though her skin glows, she's not a young woman. She's starting to show a little of the sockets of her eyes as she has attained wisdom, as she has attained maturity and insight. So her eyes are slit because she can see into her soul and she can see out to the world. Her nose is even, her features are balanced, and she has one hell of a head of hair. So again, it's showing this attention and this significance. And you have works of art such as one that's currently on view in the exhibition Earth Matters, and I draw attention to it. Partly it's a really famous mask. It's the one from Man Ray's photograph, for those who know that. But in addition to showing who we want to be, and that's what this mask does. It's showing a woman, but again, her nose is straight, her skin glows, she can see into herself and she can see out into the world. She is keeping her secrets, she knows when to speak, and she has perfect, even, well-groomed hair. She is the embodiment of who we all want to be. She is cultivation itself, so she also represents where we want to be. And that was performed to tell that story, and it was in contrast to the mask to its side, which is where you don't want to be, where there are horns and glaring teeth and all that is wild. And it's an interesting thing to think about. The sculptural qualities of hair historically had that capacity to be the seat of creativity and pride, and how that has changed over decades, centuries of cruel history, and how that changes how artists today continue to interact with their hair. And so here we have an artist, Ingrid Mwangi, and she has a different work of art actually on view in the Earth Matters exhibition, where she used her own body as a photograph. She tanned it. So she tanned her body to show the African continent and Germany, because she is Afro-German. And she uses her body, all of her surfaces, her hair, her skin, to look at how we conflate race with nationhood, how we conflate identity in so many complex and problematic ways. And this is a work of art that actually is mistitled here on the slide. It's actually called Neger, Don't Call Me. So Neger is the German word for Negro, and she is looking at assumptions of wildness in association with hair, assumptions of identity, and how bodies are seen as types instead of individual features. And she is doing that, again, by drawing on the power of hair to tell a story, to conceal your identity or to express yourself, but really to show how complicated it is. And so that was really my contribution, is to bring this conversation that it's in the art. And I hope that you'll go into our museum spaces and see it in the art here and know that this is a part of all of our heritage. So.
And we are going to really get back to a discussion of this inherited, but you know, it's interesting, our next speaker, Ms. Johnnetta Betsch, is the founder with her partner of an organization called African Ancestry. And if you've seen, I think it was the Henry Louis Gates special, the first one where you had folks who were looking at where their ancestors actually came from. What is so interesting about the work that this organization does is that it's actually helping people to find the regions that their families came from, and to really look at this issue of African identity much closer than we've ever been able to do it. So this is bringing the work of genealogy, the work of Ancestry into the 21st century, and it's a great work. And so we wanted to, we are so glad that you were able to join us, Gina, and to talk about this ability to trace, this new ability to trace DNA and the implications for hair and identity.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, we are the company that the PBS special used to trace people's ancestries back to Africa. So we were an integral part of that. And our mission is to transform the way we view ourselves as African Americans and the way we view Africa. And we do that through DNA. As you all know, well, I guess I should do my slides. Sankofa is sort of our theme in terms of going back to reclaim our past in order to move forward. We're really the only group that can't point to a country of origin. You know, we live with, work with, go to school with people who can say, I'm Italian American, or I'm Mexican American, or whatever it is, and they say that with a lot of pride. And so then we say with a lot of pride, I'm from North Carolina. I'm from Mississippi. If we want to get specific, because while we get to claim the entire continent, and that's kind of cool, no one else gets to say, you know, they don't call themselves European Americans or Asian Americans. We get to claim all those countries and all those cultures, but there are thousands of them. And so our goal is really to help you narrow down and look at what specific present-day countries, and you know that has a whole lot of political and historical connotation to it as well, but who are the people living on the continent today with whom you share a common genetic ancestry? My business partner is a geneticist, Dr. Rick Kittles, and this really is his life's work brought to commercial. You know, again, I talked about this, we really don't know where we are from in Africa, and when we do genealogy research, right, we can pretty much know both of our parents' names, right? Everybody here, anybody doesn't know both of their parents' names? Right, we pretty much know that. How many people know all 4 of your grandparents' names? Great, a lot of you all. How many of you know all 8 of your great-grandparents' names? Many fewer hands we see, right? That's just 3 generations. 3 generations of people who make up who you are, and you don't even know their names. And so that's a huge void, just 3 generations. If we go back 10 generations, there's 1,024 people who make up who we are. Now, DNA can't tell us who all those people are or where all those people come from. I'm sorry, we're not there yet. But what we can do, excuse me, is look at direct lineages. So mother to mother to mother on back, or father to father to father on back. And the time frame of our analysis is 500 to 2,000 years. And the way this works is basically, now I'm not a geneticist, as we talked about earlier, but I do understand the very basics, so you all will know as much as I know in about 2 minutes. Okay, so not as humans, more than 99.9% of our DNA is the same. That's what makes us humans, right, doctor? Okay, so mine is the same, and yours is the same as all these people on this slide, and all of us in this room. But obviously, we look different, we act differently. There are things about us, things about our DNA that do make us different. Now, here's my little art lesson since we're in the Museum of African Art. We get 50% of our DNA from our mother and 50% from our father. So if your mother's yellow and your father's blue, what color will you be? Green. Excellent. Okay. So we're all green in this room, both men and women. But imagine that we have this little yellow dot. There's a part of our DNA that we inherited from our mother that didn't mix with anything we got from our father. It stayed yellow. And that's called mitochondrial DNA. It's maternally inherited. We all got it from our mother, she got it from her mother, she got it from her mother. For many generations, it doesn't change. So if I can find your same yellow dot somewhere else in the world, then I found someone with whom you share a common genetic ancestry. And the same works for the father's side, but only with the guys. So all the men in the room, you have a blue dot, a little bit of DNA that you inherited from your father that didn't mix with anything you got from your mother, and that's your Y chromosome. That's what makes men men, what makes males males. That has the gene for not asking for directions. Okay? It's kind of like your last name. It's paternally inherited. Men get it from their fathers, who got it from their fathers, who got it from their fathers, and so on. So if we want to find out our paternal ancestry, we get a male in the family to trace that line. So ladies, we don't have a blue dot. We don't have a Y chromosome. Obviously, we're women, girl power. And so we need our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, some male on that side of the family to trace that ancestry. Are you with me? Yeah. So that's pretty much how it works. So I traced, well, we'll do you. What was your ancestry?
Sierra Leone. We're talking in Senegalese.
Okay. Yeah, so we found Monty's yellow dot among the Mende women or Mende people living in Sierra Leone today, which means Monty's yellow dot that he shares with his sister and his mother and all of those relatives is here in DC today. But there are also people in Sierra Leone today with that same yellow dot, the same one. We know that because we have the largest database of African lineages in the world, which is what enables us to do this work. And so each of them got their yellow dot from their mother. Okay, this is the dividing line. This is the US, okay, and this is Africa. Their mother, who got it from their mother, who got it from her mother, who got it ultimately from one woman in Sierra Leone at some point 500 to 2,000 years ago. And so the work that we do is very transformative on so many different levels. And as it relates to hair and adornment, I can't say that we see people who share ancestry with Nigeria have this sort of look or this type of hair. I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you anecdotally is that it fundamentally changes who you are. And that's what's important. It helps you it gives you another tool, another data point with which to identify yourself, with which to define yourself. And that's what's important, because if you don't know where you're from, if you don't have some connection to something, then you can't fully understand who you are. And I think that's the basis for the work that the Do Good Hair Project is based on, is really understanding who you are. And identity is a constantly evolving narrative of self. So you can be whoever you want to be. That's the good news. And so it can change, and we are doing our part to help, again, give people some information about their heritage that may inform how they see themselves going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Tina.
Before I introduce Dr. Monty O. Harris, I know that you guys have a lot of questions already and are ready for the discussion that we have afterwards, but you've gotten these little cards, these little orange cards, and we're going to ask you that if you have, excuse me? Does everyone have orange cards? Yep. Okay, well I think that there may be people who, I think you could have taken them outside, but there are some more around, so if you have a question to ask, if you could hold up your hand, someone will give you an orange card. And then at the end of the discussion, we will have some questions, and we'll continue the discussion that way. So you'll see folks going around to make sure that you have your cards. Now, around 3 years ago in Tanzania, and in Zanzibar, I met Dr. Monty Harris and his family, his lovely wife Lisa, and so we sat around for hours talking about the relationship between heritage, identity, and aesthetics. And we know that after all is said and done, we talk about race is an idea. Race is a construct, an idea. But identity and the sense of belonging and the sense of culture, knowing that you come from some place, is so much more important than the particular looks that you've gotten. And I think that the idea of being able to see, or to find out some of that heritage is the beginning of a journey towards finding out where you see yourself and really looking at your full identity. But at the same time, we want to look at ourselves in a way that connects us. And Dr. Monty Harris, I call him an aesthetic evangelist because he looks at, he's a plastic surgeon, but as I think he said, you know, people, they come and say, you know, don't make me look like certain pop stars, deceased pop stars. But his evangelical work has been looking at authenticity and looking at, and as a clinician, looking at hair loss, and he gets to hear the range of stories from people who come to him who are concerned with identity and aesthetics. And out of that, I think, came the Do Good Here project, which he's going to talk to us about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. You know, I'm really excited to be here. And I'm really excited that all of you are here too, because this is important. And when I say it's important, you know, we have an opportunity here. And a part of that opportunity, there was a essay that I was reading, and then there was this little comment or quote in it from a Russian poet, Dostoevsky, that said, "Beauty will save the world." And you know, I saw that like beauty will save the world, and it resonated with me because I actually believe it. You know, I really believe it. And these ideas of beauty will save the world, for me, it was more personal in the sense that I recognized that this idea of African beauty and the beauty of the African diaspora can really save the world. So when we talk about this being important, we're here because we have the opportunity to do what? Save the world. So this conversation is a very unique conversation. This conversation has not happened before in this context. And that is, you have artists, curators, cosmetologists, clinicians, all on the same stage, talking about something that can save the world. So I really want us to really dig deeper and understand the power that each of us has as an individual to make a difference, and understand the power that African beauty and African art and African aesthetics has to really shape what the 21st century can be. Beauty. You know, I'm a beauty doctor. You know, and you know, people say plastic surgeon, and I'm always quick to try to like, oh, I don't really want to be called that because it's got this really tight box around it whenever you say plastic surgeon. So I'm very quick to be like, okay, I'm really a beauty doctor. And we talk about these ideas of being a beauty doctor, it means something. So, and I care about African beauty and African aesthetics. And one of the interesting things is that when you understand the consciousness of Africa in the context of beauty, beauty and good go together. They're interchangeable, they intersect, it's all woven in, blended. You can't separate them, beauty and good, beauty and good. So when you think about these ideas of beauty will save the world, with an African consciousness that's goodness. The good will save the world. We got caught up because we started to adopt a fragmented mentality. And that fragmented mentality was basically saying that beauty is this thing that's separate from good. And largely, we've lived our life that way, that beauty became some type of object. And in a certain sense, the African art and our understanding of African art was introduced into Western society as an object, devoid of the good. So a big part of this conversation is really trying to put this back together, the African consciousness, how beauty and good go together. And once that happens, when people recognize that beauty and good is the same, that in and of itself will save the world. So there's a special place that we have, and we got big work to do. So good, right? We talk about beauty and good. I consider myself an artist, and I just claimed it recently because everyone said, oh, yeah, you an artist, Dr. Harris, you an artist, you know, with my work. And I didn't claim the title, and I grew up drawing. So I was the artsy kid growing up. And people knew like I was an artsy kid. But I never truly claimed that title or the identity of an artist until recently. And there was an article that I was reading called The African Aesthetic. Actually, it was an essay, a book of essays. And one of the quotes from the essay said that in ancient African societies, the role of the artist is to elevate consciousness. So when I saw that, I was like, well, hey. I'm an artist, and since I'm a doctor, then I'm going to be a healing artist, okay? So I'm going to claim that I'm a healing artist. And then if I'm a healing artist, I start looking at these ideas of, well, I'm plastic arts. We went to a conference in France, and one of the artists gave me his card. And on his card, it said, artiste plastien. I was like, oh, that's what they call artists in France? Artiste plastien. So, and I'm like, that's me, I'm a plastic artist. So I recognize that I really am. I'm a healing plastic artist, right? And the wonderful thing about a healing plastic artist with an African consciousness, right? Because I know about elevating consciousness, that I understand that the power is that I can shape and modify the physical, do a pretty good job at that. But I also play a significant role in helping to shape the consciousness. And those things go hand in hand. So my good is that. So that moves us to these ideas of goodness. How many people are familiar with this movie? You know, show of hands, right? It's like The Room. And good hair. And the interesting thing about the movie is that for Chris Rock, it was a good movie. I mean, it kind of raised awareness to these aspects related to the obsession that black women have with their hair. So it raised awareness. But the challenge is that, yeah, it raised awareness. People are like a little upset because they're like, oh, we airing dirty laundry. But the question is that now that you've raised awareness, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do? So beauty and good, beauty in a certain sense relates to just like how things look in a sense. The good is the doing. So there has to be a functionality to it, and that's where this Do Good Hair project came from. Because I was like, okay, we're going to show you what you can do with these ideas of good hair. You know, even in this, it said, good hair, sit back and relax. Sit back and relax. And the problem with these ideas of good hair is that that's what we feel. Good hair is this thing that, you know what, DNA. Daddy had good hair, or my mama had good hair, so I got good hair. I ain't got to do much with it. It's a passive context. So we need to change these ideas around good hair to it being more of an active, restorative process. So what the Do Good Hair project is basically saying that We can do some things with good hair, but it's more than that. And it becomes the idea of how do we do good, and Dr. Cole said, the H dot, how do we do good? The H is health, right? How do we do good? The A is adornment. And these ideas of adornment, enhancing beauty, but enhancing it with a cultural sensitivity. The do good I dot is how do we do good identity? And you see that there's an aquabadal of it. That's purposeful. Because this identity relates to how do we sort of reclaim this fact that we have an African ancestral shared identity. And that's everybody. Everybody. And the R is how do we do good restoration? And for some, that becomes simply hair restoration. For others, it may become restoring peace and happiness. So just quickly, this slide, you can't really see it, but it speaks to the point that Gina was talking about, these ideas of universality and differences. The reality is, like she said, that we're like 99.9% the same. Everybody's 99.9% the same. But the thing that makes each of us special and unique, and that thing that God gave us to use to really uplift humanity is in that 0.1%. So a part of our life journey is trying to figure out, what's my 0.1? How can I get as much information as possible to figure out what my 0.1 is? That's what our purpose is, finding the 0.1 so that we can do what we're put here to do. So do good health relates to sort of promoting mental and physical well-being. You can't see the slides, but what I've recognized is that physical modification, okay? There's a quote by Alice Walker that talks about that my last physical barrier to spiritual liberation is my oppressed hair. And what I realized as a plastic surgeon, and I've been doing this for a while and having very interesting conversations with people for over 15 years, that the most power there is for transformation and ultimately transcendence comes with the hair. It comes with the hair. It's not the nose, it's not the eyes, it's not, we're talking about people doing like butt implants and all this stuff. It's the hair. There's so much power with the hair. So transitioning to natural hair, there's power in that. Transitioning to natural hair can also transition you to the supernatural, linking sort of this physical with the spirit. Do good adornment relates to sort of transitioning the natural. Do good identity, and I'm just going to quickly make a point of this, is that we have a process where people can go through self-discovery. And it essentially allows them to reclaim ancestral memory and also tap into their creative spirit. That process allows you to essentially become the artisan of yourself. And the inspiration for that was actually David Driscoll. And there's a picture there, you can't really see it, but in like 1970, he created a mask that was essentially his face merged or with a hybrid of a mask from Benin. And that was sort of this idea of reclaiming ancestral memory. A lot of the Harlem Renaissance and the New Negro movement, how do we reclaim our ancestral legacy? So Dr. Driscoll did it, but we can all do that now and do it even better. We can do it better because technology has evolved that I don't have to just pick some mask from Benin. I can pick a mask from Senegal or Sierra Leone. So we have a project where patients are able and clients are able to sort of reclaim and reconnect their organic identity, their relationship with nature, their cultural identity, their relationship with community, and their spiritual identity, their relationship with their ancestors. And lastly, do good restoration. And this is just a patient of mine that had not worn her hair out in 15 years. And she came to me because she said, you know, I'm tired of wearing wigs, but I'm trapped because I have so much loss. That same person could have been someone that is wearing weaves because they have significant loss. So I'm not here to make judgments on anyone's hairstyle. the trump card that I have as a physician is that health matters. So if that weave, or if that relaxer, or if that wig is doing damage to your hair, that ain't good. It's just that simple. So the challenge is that for women of African descent, Black Americans and the diaspora, hair loss has become epidemic. Epidemic. And we're not having the conversation that we need to have to help to heal and promote well-being related to the relationship that women in general, and particularly women of African descent, have with their hair. So this opens the door to that conversation.
Great, thank you. Well, we've talked about some of the varied significance of our hair. We've talked about, we started here as an art form. We've talked about ancestry. We've talked about hair health, heritage and identity, and we segue back to hair from the point of view of another type of hair artist and hair styling. And there's so many more choices that folks have right in the African community, African world community, to style their hair. And so we're really pleased to have Ms. Camille Lee, who's going to talk to us and show us some of the artistry of hair. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. How are you? It is so good to see all of you all, and you are just gorgeous. We've been scanning the audience like, ooh, that's a beautiful hairstyle. I want to first introduce you all to my styling team. Audrey and Nene, can you all stand up for me, please, and just wave? These are the young ladies that work with me at Noir Salon. And the reason I introduced them is because, you know, we all come from different cultures, and I want you all to understand that part of the images that you all are going to see are going to be representative of all of our cultures. Audrey is part Ghanaian, so I wanted to mention that in her artistry and how she applies that to her work. Let me show the first slide. This was a client that I shot. A lot of the ladies that are coming in now, they want hair color, they want dynamic vision, they want something that just looks out of the ordinary, but they still want it to be natural. So part of what we do at Noir Salon is to modernize African hair. She is a makeup artist, she is bright, she is effervescent, and I just felt like this red represented her. And I have a few models over here that are wearing a similar red. I feel like Black women have kind of shied away from color only because of the chemical damage and all of the things that it has cost us as far as length and health. But I do like to share with people that I have found a really successful and safe color system, and I've been able to preserve a lot of hair and a lot of length by using this system. I want to go to the next slide. This is one of Audrey's clients, and I wanted to show you all the pattern of this style. There were several rows that met in a circle. And then as we get to the back of the hairstyle, it swings back around to the front. And I wanted to introduce to the audience, if they didn't already know, about African fractals. The idea of African fractals is that you have one pattern that repeats on many different levels. And part of what I love about Audrey and what I love about her work is that she includes this system in a lot of her hairstyles, and I'll be bringing some of them up later. But I wanted to show you Lance because when she did this, I just thought it was so stunning and so just beautiful. And even the fact that he is a man, it still looked masculine on him. That's something that, you know, a lot of clients will come in, oh, I want a style, but I just don't want it to look too feminine. But I thought this was fitting for him. He's an artist, he's a writer, and I just thought this was really beautiful and appropriate. This is Nakia, she's over here, she's one of our models as well. These were assembled pin curls. Now this is a really difficult and challenging hairstyle to do on natural hair, let me tell you. So to watch her build this, I just thought it was genius. Each of those layers, some went in one direction, others turned and went in the other way. I also loved the jewelry that she had on that day. I just thought it was so apropos. And this is one of the images, it's one of the most striking images on our website right now, because we want people to understand that, yes, you can have African hair, you can have natural hair, it can be modern, it can be beautiful, you can wear it to work, you can wear it to weddings, you can wear it and it's appropriate and it's okay and it's beautiful and lovely. And my last slide. This was a set that I did for a young lady. We were getting ready to do that same photo shoot, and I set her hair in Bantu knots in the same African fractal system. Each of those squares are about the same size as each other, but I wanted to show you all how I repeated that same circular pattern inside the square. It's dynamic. She could wear it out. She wore it to work and then came back and saw me the next day. We took it apart and we exploded it into this beautiful afro. But part of what I do also at the salon is to let ladies know that before styling, before coloring, your hair has to be healthy. So when they all come in, the first thing we do is sit down, we analyze product, we analyze the rhythm of their shampoo and conditioner, we analyze even what they're using. And the ladies over here, each of them are my clients or my friends. They will tell you, I will harass them half to death trying to find out what they use just to make it successful so that they can repeat the same beauty that we create at Noir Salon at home.
Yes.
Okay, can my model stand up, please, and start making their way?
Come forward. Yeah.
All righty.
It's wonderful.
And Miss Audrey, too, come on up here, give her. First, I want to show you Miss Pat. Now, let me just say this before I get started. Each and every one of these ladies are my clients. They come into the shop, they get their hair done on a regular basis. I have relationships with these women, so these aren't just people that we picked randomly. So I'll be telling, you know, a bit of their story, why I created, you know, each hairstyle for them and why Audrey created her styles. This is Miss Pat. I love Miss Pat. And she always lets me... But she always lets me do the most wonderful things with her locks. And even though they're very small, they're very pliable. So what I did with hers, I flat twisted them all on the side into a mohawk shape. And in the center, these are pipe cleaners. Her hair is actually set on a pipe cleaner. And I took each of those pipe cleaner pipes and I rolled them into a shape. I wanted her to have something that was, you know, definitely a little younger, a little fresher, but so she could still go to work. But she's, yes, ma'am. Okay, I didn't show everybody. Yes. And some of what we do at the shop, too, is that we create styles that they can turn into another style. She can take these pipe cleaners out and have a set of curls that may last her another 3 weeks afterwards. So I try to give people things that are going to last them a really long time. We also, and I'm going to point this out, and I'm going to point mine out as well. I have a thin spot on the side of my head. After the birth of my second daughter, I suffered from postpartum thyroiditis, and I lost hair across my hairline. So part of what I do when I run into a client like myself that is dealing with thinning or dealing with areas of hair that just are not to their liking, I try to adorn as much as possible, you know, without adding a lot of other fanfare, just so that they'll know. I cut my bangs because this made sense for me. The patch is still there, but I feel a little bit better about it. However, I do like to build them hairstyles that make them feel confident when they walk out the door. Nobody has to see what's going on the side of my head right here. All right, thank you, my dear. This is Victoria, lovely, lovely. What I built for her, and now this does have a little bit of extension in it. Every fourth braid is an extension piece, but in between are two smaller cornrows. And I got this idea from a mask. Actually, I have 2 small children, so I wanted her hairstyle to represent, you know, my family life. You know, this is me in the center and my children represented on the side, and just the continuity of the fact that I'm raising them, I'm rearing them. I want them to be artists. I want them to be beautiful African human beings. And most of all, I wanted this young lady to feel great about herself. Her hair is not the longest, but I wanted to show her what your hair can be a foundation for other big and more grandiose things. So I mean, there are a lot of ladies that are upset. Oh, I don't have the right texture type. Oh, my hair doesn't look like Tracy Ellis Ross, or what do I do? So what I try to share with them is we can take what you have and make it gorgeous. Whatever they walk into the shop with me in is what they walk out with. I may shape it, I may cut it, I may lock it, but I try to keep it as authentic to them as possible. Thank you, sweetie. Yes. This is Jess. Jess is one of my great blogger friends, and she's always so supportive. She's another one of the models that's featured on our website. Jess has very long natural hair. So what I wanted to show with hers was diversity. A lot of people think, oh, it's long, I just need to straighten it. Not all the time. Not all the time. I blow dried her hair, and I literally sculpted and pinned it and sectioned it little by little. I want women with natural hair, especially when you've been growing it a long time, to understand that it just doesn't have to be out and curly. You can change the shape, you can sculpt it, you can mold it into anything that you want it to be. An article that I put on my Facebook page today talked about a lady that felt like she was in bondage to her hair because she couldn't go to the pool. She had to twist it, and it had to be just right, and she couldn't even let the water from the pool get on her hair because she basically said, I'm gonna have a meltdown, I can't handle this. I want young ladies to understand that you don't have to be in bondage to this. This is not supposed to be a jail for us. This is supposed to be our freedom, and we need to respect it as such. Thank you, darling. Turn. This is my best friend in the whole wide world. I've known her for 22 years. We have been through locks, short hair, shaved, bald. Both of us have 2 children, so we have walked this hair walk together, truly. What I wanted to represent with Anisha's hair is, Anisha's a musician. She's an artist just like myself. We both went to the same high school for visual and performing arts. I was in visual arts and she was in television production. But my best friend's a performer. And I wanted people to see that your hair can be natural, it can be short, you can have a dynamic cut, and it can be funky. And it's great, and it's okay. You know, she goes to work, she works right down the street. And she walks in there in her office and everything's fine, and she goes and gets on stage and it's even more beautiful. I just want people to understand that it doesn't have to look cookie cutter. It doesn't have to be just the small fro. It doesn't have to be just the braids. You can do so much with natural hair. We did change the color a little bit, but not too much because I wanted to keep it authentic to shades that she usually wears, which are in the Auburn family. I also wanted to highlight, turn around for me, my dear. I also wanted to highlight that I'd played up on her texture. It's not all curly all the way through. I wanted people to see that it can be, you know, a little bit bush, a little bit curly, and it's all right. A lot of girls come into me and they're having a panic attack because they're like, Mike, I don't have curl definition, what am I gonna do? It's okay, it really is okay. And it can be beautiful and gorgeous and just dynamic. Isn't that right? This is one of Audrey's creations, and I definitely wanted Audrey to give you all a little bit of information about why she built these styles and what they mean to her. So I'm going to slide on over. Okay. Don't let me fall, girl. Don't let me fall. All right. Okay.
To be honest, Nakia is one of my clients that she never comes in and has to say, well, do what you want. She's like, I want this. And it's never on locked hair. It's always on straightened hair, permed hair, whatever. And I'm like, well, we could create it in a lock style. So it was a picture of a young lady with a lock
crown.
Halo crown all the way around. And I was like, yours is a little long. I don't know if we could do it, but we made it happen. If you could turn around as it went around and it was going to be, you know, go too further around, we just went ahead and bun that right there, and it's beautiful. So she has her lock crown. And as for, this is Leslie, she's the total opposite. She usually is like, okay, no, I'm a teacher. I just want it to be, you know, not conservative, but she wants it to, she wants it to be safe. But lately, she has been stepping all the way out of her box. Okay, I don't know. She's been seeing styles like, okay, you know what? It's time for us to go a little further with this, and she has. So she just said, go for it. Do what you want to do. And I love the coil pattern. So I just brought everything forward. She said she's going on a trip. She wants it to sustain water. And that it will. She can get in the water and just rinse that right back out. And when she takes it down, she'll have curls when she takes that out. We have one more client. Come on over.
Oh, man.
This is the young man you saw in the slide earlier who had the, you know, Yeah, sure you can. He had a style where how you saw Camille's client had
The Bantu knots.
and when it was in natural hair, he had them on his locks, and when he took them out, he just has a head full of curls. I mean, the perspiration has probably just
been dropping off.
yes, but otherwise they would be full and bouncing. My curls are different from his because his, I mean, when he took them out, they were really tight and they last until water hits them.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happened with him. But these are my lock styles.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you so much, and this is really lovely.
Thank you.
And I guess so there's something that's really been underlying this discussion that links identity to dress to heritage. It's also a celebration of diversity, and it's a conversation about diversity, which is a conversation that needs to happen both within folks who identify within as African and as Sister Johnnetta always mentions, African people constitute the entire population of the world because it was our birthplace, our communal birthplace. We want to have a little bit of time for discussion, and we have some wonderful questions here. So what I would like to do is to go perhaps directly to some of the questions, since we don't have a lot of time. The first one is, in trying to get as far from the phrase good here as possible, what are some more self-affirming words or phrases African Americans can use to describe our different grades of here? That was the question. And I'm also going to extend that in terms of some of the ways that within, for example, looking at the wonderful collection at the museum, you know, what are some of the references, the visual references that, like the mask that you showed with the beautifully coiffed hair, people can look at to get ideas about this affirmation and what this variety of good hair represents.
At the museum, as as I said, you know, one of the things that's so remarkable to me is if you walk through the museum, you can look at each and every work of art and see that wherever the human figure is treated, the hair is not treated neutrally. It is something of profound significance, and each and every artist made that hair my hair, their hair. I mean, they individualize it, and you can see that the different textures and the different sculptable, if that's a word, qualities of the hair come through and are celebrated and are brought to the fore as a way of saying so much. And I don't know that that answers the word of how you describe one's hair, because I think that each and every one of us struggles with what we look like. That's an unfortunate consequence of the world that we are living in right now. And I think that, you know, it doesn't unfortunately matter your heritage. It's just being alive right now that we all have to figure out how to embrace my hair, you know, my fat hips, myself, and that's the hard part, not the words. It's that. But if you can come to a museum and see how through time and across cultures and thousands of miles, folks have reconciled looking at each and every one of us as an opportunity, as a place of creativity, then maybe that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah.
And the idea of good and good hair, you know, that's not bad. You know, good hair is okay. I think it becomes, we need to reframe the intent or the context around this idea of good. Good hair is good. It's my hair. It's good hair. You know, I think that the challenge is that we are so quick, and we were talking about this, so quick to always look at the other for imitation, to say that, oh, that, I like that over there, that's good. and sort of that good being separate from the individual. So, you know, the more we can do to sort of turn everything back in, to recognize that that goodness and that beauty is deep within each and every one of us, then the idea of good hair is fine. It relates to the intent.
I would actually like to say, I'm sorry to jump back in, but that's the one thing that I think African art does better than almost any other art genre in the world, is not to equate goodness with, or beauty with, looking like Angelina Jolie or Halle Berry or who have you, but to make beauty about the aspirational. That beauty is entwined with self-respect, with the embodiment, as I said, of good behavior. It is the embodiment of the good place. Beauty is associated with cultivation, and it is what you make yourself into. And that is throughout any African art that I have ever seen. That is what comes forward, is that sense of not superficial beauty, but cultivated, acquired, thoughtful, proactive, and sharing beauty.
Okay. And okay, yeah. Well, I think that there's one other thing that I wanted to mention. There's an incredible book by Sylvia Arden Boone, and it talks about Mende aesthetic, the aesthetics of Mende women, and you know, in West Africa, historically there were societies where women learned to be women, and they learned about this same kind of beauty that we've been talking about here, that it's not only what you do to make yourself physically attractive, but that beauty, and I think it's a real principle that was taught through this, was that beauty comes from within and comes out, but the other part of it is beauty being related to health, and beautiful hair being healthy hair. So good hair being healthy hair, whatever texture. So, okay, sorry, yeah?
Related to cultivation, and I just couldn't let that go because the whole hair industry, particularly here in America, I mean, that's what it was. It was beauty culture. Right. And it's funny that that term was like really the right term.
Right.
But I don't think people really understood and looked deeply why it was called beauty culture and the intent of it being called beauty culture. So it'll be interesting to see if we go back to these ideas of beauty culture in the context of hair.
I think that's very true. That's very true. So we're going to go to the next one, and it says that, let me see. Can you talk about, and I think that this is for Gina Page, can you talk about how the African lineage genetic database was created or compiled, created and compiled? And if you could just speak for a minute or so about the basis for that, that'd be great.
We call our database the African Lineage Database, and as I mentioned, it has over 30,000 indigenous African lineages. So if you remember our art lesson, yellow dots and blue dots, from about 30 different African countries, primarily from West and Central Africa, because those are the populations that mostly contributed to the transatlantic slave trade. And my partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, he collaborated with researchers on the continent to collect the data, as well as some firsthand data collection he did himself. And then a portion of our database contains data that's available in the public domain. It took him about 10 years to compile the database for us to start, and then we've added to it since over the course of our 10 years in business. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year.
Great. I think we may have time for just perhaps one more question, and that is thoughts in the millions of dollars that African Americans spend in beauty supply stores or hair weave stores that are outside the African American community. And the other thing is, there's well, this is a different question. Has African hair ever been styled for religious purposes or signed? I think that the second is a much larger question, and the first one goes to some of the economic bases, some of the history of the African American hairstyling industry. And
my grandmother, well, not my grandmother, my great aunt was Christina Jenkins, and she was one of the first innovators of the hair weave. She's one of the ladies that actually invented putting it on the track. Some of the things that stand out about my family history, I have a grandmother who was a hairstylist as well, but some of the things that stand out to me were that African hair, African American hair, this was something that needed to grow in our community. We needed to work with each other. We needed to value and love our clients. We needed to work with distributors, people of color that actually made products, people that sold our utensils, everything. A lot of what they taught me was about keeping things kind of insular, you know. Keep it so that your community is growing first, you know. How am I profiting if my clients aren't profiting, if they're not going to their jobs and feeling good about themselves? How am I buying a product from a large corporation when I can count right now at least 5 friends that make natural hair products? I need to support them. I have a friend here that's putting on a hair show in a few months. I need to support that because she's a part of my community. She's a part of our beauty culture. She's a part of our economy. So I feel as though we have an opportunity to present something to our people that says, hey, this is something that you know how to do. It's a part of our culture. It's inbred. Who does not know how to do at least a 2-strand twist or a plait or a ponytail or something? This is something that is a part of us, and we can grow from it, and we can make money, and we can treat each other with respect, and everyone's business can grow.
Thank you. That's great. Okay. So the other question, I think we are getting ready for our post discussion, which will take place as part of the celebration of African American hair. But I want to ask each of our panelists to say one final word based on the discussions that you've heard throughout this this evening that may summarize some of the thoughts that you want people to take home with them.
Pardon me. What I want people to take home is that we are beautiful, and there's been so much to attack us lately, to attack our first lady, to attack how we look, how we carry ourselves at work. I want people to take away from this that we come from a culture of adornment, we come from a culture of respect, and that respect was about ourselves. It was about you walked out into the street and you looked good. You did what you had to do. You put on your jewelry. You braided your hair. You wore the finest garments. So I hope that what people take away from this is to get back to that. We need to get back to respecting ourselves, respecting our beauty, and don't let the popular culture take that from us. That's something we need to maintain.
My quick thing is that there's power in looking good, and that energy from looking good can take you to feeling good, but we got to go beyond feeling good. And that going beyond feeling good is ultimately tapping into our identity to do good, and ultimately we got to do better than doing good, and that's being good. And once we understand that the ultimate is to be good, that connects us with that whole unity consciousness, which is love. So there is a pathway to go from this aesthetic doorway to ultimately coming into our sense of being. We just got to stay on the journey and set the right intent at the onset.
We should have gone this way so I didn't have to go after Monty. What I'd like to leave you with is just the importance of knowing who you are. You know, in order to respect yourself, in order to start on your journey, you really have to understand who you are. And there are lots of tools and avenues and resources available to all of us here in DC particularly to understand who we are. So I encourage you to do that.
Well, I have to say, I don't want to go after any of them. I think all three of you said pretty outstanding things. There's no one thing I would want anyone to come away with, but one thing that I will say is that part of this also is recognizing that Africa is not one space. I mean, there are, as we've talked about, there's so many different cultures and communities, and to recognize that individuality and to embrace that art changed over time, that communities changed over time, and that we can see that. And I say that because I think we don't always use the words, or that we don't always actually look in a way that recognizes that real complexity. And I think that if we see that incredible richness and diversity and complexity, it will change so many of the stereotypes that people are still struggling with.
Well, I think that these panelists have really given us so much to think about and so much richness to go back and to look at ourselves, to have conversations with each other about our own hair journeys, about our own life journeys as they relate to beauty, as they relate to the real meanings of beauty, and also, I know, encourage us to take advantage of the incredible resources that are right here in Washington and at this museum, at the National Museum of African Art, and to give back to the National Museum as well in regard to bringing our children, becoming involved. So we want to just have this conversation continue. We will be having more conversations like this in the next few weeks at the Smithsonian's Folklife Festival with the program The Will to Adorn. And we will be having runway shows. We'll be having, Dr. Harris is going to be there, and we'll be having lots of opportunities. This is a conversation about how we are diverse and how we are alike through the lens of what we look like, but it's a really important conversation. I want to thank Dr. Cole. I want to thank all of the folks at the African Art Museum, and I want to thank you in the audience for coming and being here. And we wanted to turn it over to the head of the Sanaa Committee, who's made this all possible, and we want to thank you as well and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, but I think we need to really thank our audience. Thank Dr. Njai for the wonderful thing that she's done for us today. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. Really appreciate it. I do one of these right here. Thank you. And I want to thank Dr. Harris as well for being here. I want to thank Dr. Melbourne for taking time out of your schedule. I wanted to thank Ms. Reed for your wonderful models, and of course, Ms. Page, thank you for the tremendous amount of work you've done over the years. And I know I met you 10 years ago. I remember, this is a separate sidebar conversation. I'll tell you about it another day. But anyway, I want to wrap up and say that, the Sanaa Circle is a circle of friends. We support this museum. We believe in its membership. We believe in its growing. This place is central to our community. As Dr. Cole has said so many times, we all share in Africa. Doesn't matter what you say you are now, we all share in that. And as long as this museum exists, as long as we support it, as long as we become members, we can continue that conversation. And so I ask all of you tonight to take the time to become a member. That's why Sanaa Circle's here. That's why I'm here in pitching. Become a member of the museum. Visit, bring your children, support it. And so now I'm going to tell you something more important. Now, I believe there's food that way, right? And there's the exit that way. I'm going to the food and to the drink. But if you want to leave that, you can. And also one reminder about what membership in this museum really means. We have Jill Scott, who my wife gets really jealous about me mentioning because she knows I have a little thing for Jill. We got something special going on. She don't know me yet, but y'all know her? Tell her Tom is here for her, okay? But Jill Scott and I got a little something special. But she is going to be here, and she is coming to our next speaker series. And one of the advantages of being a member of the museum is that you get to know a little bit in advance, and you actually get a reserved space, and that's a great thing. We take trips to New York, and we do high-end sort of things from time to time, and we visit famous restaurateurs? Yeah, we get to do that, and it's a lot of fun. So we have a unique family here, and again, thank you all. Thank all of you for coming and giving your time and doing such a wonderful job this evening. And